No. No. Because I said, I thought it was any idea what kind of thing this might be. He did because he had a big meeting. He didn't talk. He didn't want to talk. He just, how are you? Busy. Busy. So I've been trying to get you something to work. So, I'm sending you.
Yeah.
Been in there for 40-some years. She goes to church. She's from
That's always
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming. Thanks for attending today. I want to welcome everybody here at the Woolwich Memorial Center. We're here in June for the Kitchener-Conestoga provincial debate the Chamber hosted, and it was quite entertaining. We had a good time. There's always a lot of political passion in this particular part of Ontario, and it's my delight to be here. My name is Glenn Pelcher from 570 News, your moderator today. This is the final of the series of debates hosted by the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce in advance of the election on October 27th. Debates for regional chair, regional council, and mayor of Waterloo were held last week, while the candidates for mayor of Kitchener assembled last night. The format for this event will be 90-second opening remarks by the candidates, followed by a series of questions on issues of concern for local employers, which have been advanced through the Chamber's policy advisory committees and their at-large membership. At the conclusion of questions, each candidate will have, again, 90 seconds for closing remarks. Now, this has been a lot of fun. We've enjoyed this. We do allow and actually encourage rebuttals. So if you hear another candidate say something about you, you're allowed to address that comment. If you hear your name mentioned, if you hear an accusation made or some kind of a comment made that you disagree with or take contention with, whether it's about a fact or whatever it is, all you have to do is look at me and go like that. And then at the end of the question, after everybody's answered the question, I will allow you to interject. So it's a way of addressing candidates directly. And we did that yesterday with Kitchener Mayoral candidates. It was quite interesting. Pervanovic and Glenn Graham had a bit of one-on-one was quite entertaining. Again, we don't have to do that, but if you feel you need to address something, you're more than welcome to do that. The order of the opening remarks was determined in a draw for the debate, so it's completely random. And the order of opening remarks will be Sandy, Todd, Doug, and Bonnie. Again, and the first question was determined in the draw before proceedings began. The first question will go to Todd Cowan, and we'll take it through. So, again, 90 seconds. Try to keep it to 90 if you can. And to commence opening remarks, we begin with Sandy Jones.
Thank you, Glenn. Good afternoon. Politics, good politics, is about forging relationships. Relationships and partnerships with business, with service clubs, with other levels of government, and of course with volunteers and with our constituents. Good politics is about taking the public trust seriously, in our policies, in our decisions, and in our conduct. You have trusted me as an elected official for 10 years on both the regional level at the Woolwich Region District School Board and at the local level here on the Township Council. As we entered the 20th century, cuts to school funding hit us hard, hit us where it hurts because it affected our children. I chaired many meetings where concerned parents shared their frustration and their anger. Their voices need to be heard in a respectful and thoughtful setting, and they were. Some residents will remember that I met with them in their homes to hear their concerns and their expertise around gravel pits. I listened. As a leader in this community for over 2 decades and over almost 6 at the region, I have forged friendships and garnered respect from residents and at all levels of government. Some people asked if I'm tough enough. I've made many tough decisions. My question to you is, does tough enough mean being loud? Or does tough enough mean getting the job done? I am tough enough. I listen, I have the experience, and I get the job done. It would be a privilege to serve you again.
Thank you, Sandy. Todd?
Thank you very much. First, I'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for putting this on. Secondly, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. We keep talking about engaging the people and getting more people interested in what's going on municipally and in the election, and you've shown that by your presence today. In 2010, I decided to run for mayor. We live in a fantastic township in a fantastic region, but I felt we weren't really living up to our full potential. So I made a number of promises, and we made a number of changes. So what did we see over the last 4 years? We see a stronger gravel pit policy. We've reached out to businesses and focus groups to bring them in and say, what are your priorities? We've implemented a sign policy to rebrand the township so we can sell that to other people looking to relocate their businesses here. Department by department, we went through it at the township and looked for cost savings. We saved over $400,000 to taxpayers. It didn't go on the tax bill, but we're going to continue to do that. We've increased our commitment to facilities like here in the WMC. We have a youth center here. We've doubled the funding for that. We've increased business visitation programs for our businesses so we can stay on top of where the businesses are, what their needs are. And we've helped also secure over, I think it was $3 million for businesses to expand here in the township. We fought to keep the land transfer station open, and we're working right now to try to come to a long-term solution to this problem, because that's what I've heard from people. I want to keep that vision going, and I want to keep that vision continuing, because I believe we still have a lot of work to do in the township. Again, thank you for coming, and thank you for your interest.
All right, thank you very much, Todd. And our next opening remark is Doug Perfect.
Thank you, folks. Thanks for coming out today. And I guess I'm the new kid on the block, so I have to prove myself and prove my wealth and all of you and my experience. So, born and raised in the KW area, I lived in Heidelberg for the past 16 years. I recently retired after 30 years of municipal service with the City of Kitchener. And my role there as manager, facilities management department, exposed me to all aspects of municipal government. My exposure to several mayors and many councillors over the past 3 decades has prepared me well for this position. My responsibilities at the city for the past 3 decades were wide range and included building maintenance of all facilities, city hall, city-owned buildings in the downtown core, indoor-outdoor pools, splash pads, arenas, community centers, 7 fire halls, rental properties, farmers markets, several parking garages, and so on. A few other areas of responsibility for me were asset management, project management ranging from renovations to new construction, corporate emergency preparedness, corporate security, preparing lease and rental agreements, preparing annual and operating capital budgets, preparing and presenting cases to council, and preparing tender documents, and so on. I was also involved in many internal and external committees over the years, and as well have appeared in court on a number of occasions as an expert witness on behalf of the city of Kitchener. Over the years, I've worked with many external agencies, for example, Water Regional Police, as it relates to corporate security and downtown issues. Downtown Business Association as it relates to large events taking place in the downtown core. I've also worked with the region as well as many other municipalities. Another area that I'm proud of was my involvement in the past several years working very close with the Economic Development Department within the City of Kitchener and the prospective tenants as it related to designing and preparing the facilities for some of the new businesses we now see in the downtown core. Having said all this, the biggest challenge ahead of us is the lack of municipal infrastructure funding sources. That will continue to be a problem not only for us, but for the rest of the municipalities. It should be this council's priority to ensure that their list of projects along with supporting documentation and business cases are well prepared in advance and identifying and justifying the township's infrastructure projects. Other priorities for me would be to ensure that all Woolwich facilities continue to either meet or exceed accessibility standards, given that a large part of annual operating dollars are allocated towards maintaining of these assets. This council will need to ensure that comprehensive audits have been completed on the township's major assets, identifying any and all deficiencies, allowing the township to budget and allocate operating and/or capital dollars accordingly into the future. Maintaining a fine balance between the preservation of the township's many heritage attributes, the thought of new business and residential growth is what made me decide to run for the amendment.
Bonnie?
Thank you. Thanks to everyone who's come out for this debate today. Woolwich is the best place to work, live, and play. Our rich heritage is integral to key facets of our economy. Tourists come from all over Canada and Europe to visit Waterloo region. Oktoberfest is coming, and there will be a large number of visitors throughout our region. We have a strong sense of community within our towns and villages, and a very strong group of volunteers. Like all communities, we are faced with challenges such as a $67 million infrastructure deficit, weather challenges where we've had to deal with 2 ice storms in the last year, accessibility, protection of our farmland and water, gravel, and communication. Our elected officials need to conduct themselves with honesty and integrity. They need to be committed to the job as well as being organized and able to plan. They need to know the rules. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, candidates, for those opening remarks. And again, as we said off the top, the first question will go to Mr. Cowan. And the question is as follows. If elected, what would you do to attract new business and investment to the township? And secondly, do you support the creation of a new Waterloo Region Economic Development Corporation?
Thank you. Good question. We live in geographically, we're located very strategically, I guess you could say, in the region of Waterloo. We have the Waterloo International Airport that continues to grow. We have, two major airlines that are seeing maximum growth. WestJet is now adding larger jets coming in. American Airlines is now 80% booked. So we have some attractive features. We have a great arts community. What I've done and what I will continue to do is, first of all, we just can't attract the business, we have to retain the businesses that we have. As we've seen in Waterloo region, big plants like Snyder's that close up and leave, we need to have our finger on that. Like, we need to be, when we look at Woolwich Township, we had a business visitation program. We were doing like 60 a year. We're up to over 30 now. We're visiting businesses, large and small businesses, to say, what can we do to help? Can we secure some provincial funding? Because there's dollars there for companies to expand or to update their facilities or to become more efficient. So, and on the second part of the economic development officer, the new initiative that the region has taken on, where we're focusing more on economic development. I fully support that. What we've done in the past is it's always been, all the municipalities seem to be jockeying for position to try to compete. So a new company comes looking to the region, and you've got Woolwich, you've got Wellesley, you've got Kitchener, you've got Waterloo, all saying, well, come and locate here. So I think now that we're getting a little more organized as the region, I definitely support that, because we all need to speak with one voice when we're dealing with new businesses looking to come or current businesses looking to expand.
Thanks, Todd.
Thank you. Good question. You're probably going to hear a lot of the same answers. I think we're all on the same page with that one. What we do is we need to retain the business that we have. We need to support the businesses that we have. We need to listen to what they're saying, and we need to also work to bring new business in. As far as economic development, I fully support that. To me, it's just another layer. We're using another layer of government, like Todd said. Every municipality has an economic department. We have one voice, one person speaking on behalf of the region. To sell every township, every municipality, one person, one voice, one-stop shopping. To me, that makes the most sense.
Thanks, Doug. And we should start again. There's no time limit on your responses. The opening remarks, we want to keep to 90, closing remarks 90, but really no actual time limit to your responses. If you pull a, as I said yesterday, if you want to do a Mr. Smith goes to Washington and Jimmy Stewart, I might intervene, but feel free to take your time. If you want to make a point, don't think that the clock is ticking, because it certainly is not. Okay, that said, Bonnie.
Economic development. Mayoral currently has 31 hectares of employment land. Only 12 hectares of those are shovel ready. Reslov has 97 hectares, and only 16 of those are shovel ready. We need to find the talent out there, and we need to attract it to come in here and start building these new businesses. We're sitting with a lot of talent in this region, well, flies too, and we just need to help build on what we have. We have some good existing businesses. A few of them have started to expand, such as Global A, but we need to continue to do that. We need to retain our talent. And as far as the strategic economic committee, I totally agree with that. It's something that needs to be in place. We look at Dr. Oaker when they were looking to come for North Dumfries, and they left because we couldn't put them through the proper motions and get their facilities in place, so they went elsewhere to do their business. And we cannot keep losing businesses. We need to retain our talent, and we need to find more new talent. And I think this committee will establish everything that needs to be done for this region and help it grow.
Okay, thank you very much. Any comment to Bonnie for this question? Oh, sorry for this, Bonnie. Thanks to Sandy for this one. I just want that.
Yeah, economic development. I think to have good economic development, we need to build on our strengths. And one of the strengths that we have here is our beautiful green space. I was privileged to ride with some of my colleagues and politicians with the cycling club from Waterloo, and we did a little tour around Elmira looking at cycling and some of the issues that cyclists face. And the company that supplied the bicycles for us is looking to bring European-style tourism to this area because of the beauty of our area. So I think one of the things we need to remember is, and to look at, is what our strengths are. And I think the townships have different strengths from the city. Having said that, I think a coordinated effort between the townships and the cities is important, because as the world becomes smaller, let's face it, globalism is everywhere. As we look to other areas, we need to have a unified voice. We need to have one vision for the whole area. So I think those would be the two main things. The other thing that I would be really interested in looking at would be perhaps partnering with the universities in some kind of agricultural research or something of that nature that fits with who we are here. We're an agricultural community at our heart, and we're close to the universities. And I think that would be a really interesting project to look at.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question, pretty straightforward. It addresses a lot of the concerns of this particular area of Waterloo region, and we'll ask Doug to be the person to answer this one. Pretty simple. What support, Doug, do you think the township should provide local farmers and food processors.
Again, I think you need to strike a committee, bring all the people together, find out what their needs are and wants are. Again, very diverse, this community, rich, lots of wares when you drive down the road, lots of different people selling on the side of the road. Through the Chamber of Commerce, I also think that that's a big bonus to get the Chamber of Commerce involved and see what we can do to help the people there as well.
Thank you, Doug. And over to Sandy, or to Bonnie.
Thank you. We need to overcome the barriers to the farmers. They're finding it difficult to grow their businesses and expand, and I think part of that may be due to restrictions in our bylaws, and it may be as simple as redoing the bylaws to make it easier for them to do business. And I do know that the provincial government is looking at, together with the Ontario Federation of Agriculture, trying to remove some of these barriers so that our farms become more viable and can produce more and make more money to keep these farms in business.
Thank you. Now, Sandy.
One of the things we have to do, not just for our farmers, but for businesses in general, is remove roadblocks. And I've heard of roadblocks from all kinds of sectors around the township. And again, one of our strengths is our agriculture. And I think the farmers market are a good place where we showcase what we do well. And so that's a good place to encourage people to come to us. We have a lot of roadside stands, which is unique. And I think a lot of people come here to take those in. I was talking to a farmer just today, and she was complaining about something that many of us have complained about, and that is the closure of the waste transfer station. It's costing her a lot of money to remove her waste, and now she had to take several hours to go into Waterloo, cost a lot of money. So there's little things and there's big things, and I think we need to remove the roadblocks for our farmers and our businesses.
Okay, and Todd.
We do live in a fantastic area that we have a lot of producers and a lot of farmers, and I think most of us have taken part in, the St. Jacobs Market. We've also been here for the Mayoral Maple Syrup Festival, which is huge. We have a lot of producers here that have modernized and they've moved ahead in the 21st century. But we got to take it back a step also and look at what we have locally. We have a local Elmira Farmers Market that we should support. We should buy local and we should support local. And there's been a number of initiatives that we've done and we've participated in. So how can we support farmers? We have a buy local. We have a Woolwich day that we highlight a lot of producers in the area. It was back, I believe it was in May of this year. And it's Taste Local, Taste Fresh, where everybody can come. It's open to the public to come and sample a number of products. And we need to continue to work with tourism, because tourism is huge. When you look at the Mayoral Maple Syrup Festival, we have almost 80,000 people come every year. You look at the St. Jacobs Farmers Market, which is not only known locally, but internationally. And with the tragedy that's been there, we've been there to help support the rebuilding and whatever we can do to the market. But I think also, and Sandy, you also mentioned it, is that, we have to listen. Because the big thing that I've heard from a number of farmers that are not in the produce market, they have a dairy farm, they have those big white bales, and all of those white bales and all of that recyclables used to go to the Elmira transfer station. So the Elmira transfer station affects so many people, it affects everybody here in this room, and we need to preserve that. We fought to try to keep it open at least 2 days a week, and then it was whittled down to 2 days a month. So right now, one of the focuses that we are on is, let's look at other opportunities. Let's look outside the box. So we have been talking with waste management. We're talking to apply disposal to say, how can we make this work where we can keep this waste transfer station open? Because it's not just for the residents, but I know a lot of farmers have talked to me also about their recycling that they used to take there that's not there anymore. So I think the big overall is we need to listen to what their concerns are and how we can help out.
Okay, thank you, Todd. And moving right along, question 3. We'll start with Bonnie on this one. Yeah, you finally get it. I've got the sign right in front of me. And it deals with population growth. Driving into Elmira today, there was a time when Elmira was, really considered a small town, but I mean, it's just booming. And the township is booming. It's a very attractive place to live. The question is, should the township be more restrictive or less restrictive on population growth? Or do you think council is already providing a relatively accurate balance at this time? Bonnie, start with you.
The numbers we have from our growth come down from the region. They do it on an overall basis, so they break it down. The cities will get a certain percentage of the housing growth, as do the townships. So we are restricted as to how much growth we have. And right now, we are reviewing our Breslau secondary plan and our settlement boundaries, which will determine where our growth will go and how much growth will go in each particular area. The numbers I don't have as to what each area is allotted for growth, but it is very controlled. And I think we need to grow in a managed, controlled environment in order to be able to provide the facilities that the residents will want to see in their areas.
Okay, Sandy.
We do have a bylaw on the books in Elmira here that does limit our growth. And I think there's some wisdom in being careful with how quickly you grow. If you grow too quick, the infrastructure doesn't keep up, and you run into services that are inadequate, services that are missing. So I think there's some wisdom in having a measured growth. I also think that growth needs to be intentional and well planned. I'm also aware that we're waiting on the regional official plan to have some of that finalized before we look at how we may exchange some of our residential development land for commercial development land. And so I know that we have to wait often on other levels of government. At the provincial level, sets policies that come down to the regional level and come down to us. So we're waiting on that process, and through that process, there may be some redistribution of how we grow and where we grow.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. And Todd?
Yes, you're definitely right, Glenn. The town of Elmira has grown substantially, even since I moved here. And the township of Woolwich has actually grown almost 30% in the last 10 years. So we have seen the explosion of the fastest growing municipality in the 7 municipalities in the regional Waterloo. And I believe that managed growth is huge, because you can't have these boom and bust times of housing like you see in, say, Mississauga, where they just like go. I mean, they base everything on development charges and hope that keeps the pot full to keep taxes down. But when you have too much growth, then you've got people moving in from Burlington, you've got people moving in from London and all over, and they come in from a larger area, and what are they expecting? They expect the same services. They expect to be able to come into the Woolwich Community Center here and enroll their kids in swimming lessons. So we have to manage those services that are there too, while keeping taxes low. We have the second lowest taxes in the region continually, but we still have the services there that we have to deal with, because then there's bylaw, then there's snow removal. There's a number of things that build up, but we have to manage that growth. So if there is a downturn in the community or in the economy again, then we're not going to get hit because we have a bunch of houses. We don't have a huge base of businesses compared to our residential, so we're not seeing the exponential growth as far as taxes go when it comes to business taxes, when it comes to commercial and industrial taxes. But we are kind of insulated here because of our housing is, it's a little more steady. But we have looked at, we have 1,700 houses going up here in Elmira right now. We're working on a secondary plan in Breslau. There's a new development out in Maryhill. There's also a St. Jacobs plan, secondary plan that we're working on. So when you look at the region and you look at the price of houses and you look at how everything continues to go up, there seems to be a bit of a bottleneck. And I think, with that managed growth, it does come good things. We do have a higher tax base, but we do have to keep our eye on taxes and keep them second lowest is a great place to be with the services that we still have.
Thanks, Todd. And final answer, let's move to Doug.
Bigger is not always better. Again, when you bring lots of people into the municipality, I'm hearing we have a $67 million deficit in infrastructure, so more people, more problems, more roads, more traffic. I agree with what my colleagues are saying, it needs to be a balanced approach, a managed approach. It's good to hear that the region's put a cap on the amount of houses that we can have. On the commercial side, we have some growth over there yet, so we can bring some more businesses in for the people that actually live here for employment. And again, community centers, arenas, pools, when we start bringing more people in, they want the amenities, and obviously when you put the amenities in, taxes are going to go up. So bigger's not always better. Small, balanced approach.
All right, thank you, Doug. Next question, we'll start with Sandy on this one. As mayor of Woolwich, as you know, you would be representing township residents on the regional council. The question is, what are the main issues for the region's rural areas, main issues for them, and how would you secure support from your urban colleagues to get the region to move forward? Sandy, that's with you, sir.
I think the first thing that, I'll start with the last question first. I think the first thing that you need in securing support from fellow councillors is respect. And you need to work with them, you need to speak with them, you need to bring your issues to them. So I think relationships with each other and a good working relationship and good respect are key. Regional issues is what we're talking about.
You would be representing township residents on regional council. What do you think the main issues are for the regions, for what are the regions in rural areas?
So one of the things that I've heard from a number of people are concerns around busing. I've heard people say that they would like the route in Elmira looked at again and expanded to take in more areas. I've heard people in Breslau ask for extended busing to Breslau. And so that's a regional issue. LRT is something that comes up now and again. It's not directly related to us here, but it will provide us access along with the busing to services in the city. And the thing about public transit is that it supports our social structures and our social networks, and that in turn helps to create a better society and addresses a lot of social issues.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. Good question. Some of the top issues I believe that we have at the rural communities, rural townships. First thing is EMS response time. How fast are the responses to ambulances when we call? Hopefully we don't have to do that, but when we do, if you look at our response times, just from our geographic, how we're all spread out, our response times will be lower, but our response times were lower than the average for rural responses. So one of the things that we did do, and I worked with my colleagues, not only my rural colleagues, but my colleagues on regional council to add a reroute, which is a rural, you've probably seen like a little SUV that goes out. So if there's an ambulance that is not able to respond immediately, the reroute shows up. And they start doing initially the assessing the situation. So EMS response times is one. The second thing is police response times. We have here in Elmira, we have the detachment here. There's one in Hamburg, but even police response times are not fast enough. So when we call for a police call, it's taking them too long. It all comes back to the regional budget, and I think that's the biggest thing for the rural townships. Is when you look at the regional budget, the police budget is almost half of the entire regional budget that we need to deal with. But again, we have to do it in a managed way because nobody wants to pay extremely high taxes just so we have quicker response times, but there has to be a balance. I believe another issue that affects specifically the rural areas, and we touched on it earlier, is waste management. You look at between Wellesley, Wilmot, North Dumfries, and Woolwich, everybody has a different bag limit, everybody has a different what they can leave at the curb. So what we're doing, we're already starting a review on our waste management to say, let's make it all pretty much the same, so we all know how many bags we can put up. We can put up 3 bags here in Elmira. Kitchener can put up 10 bags. But the rural transfer station is another huge issue that we need to deal with, because if it's too expensive, let's look at other options and how we can deal with this. Because when we talk to people like Waste Management and Applying Disposal, they're saying, you know what, I think we'd be interested in taking this over. So this could be another opportunity for either the township or the region to move services, privatize services, that we can have a better service and a less expensive service. But I think at the end of the day, it's also the regional tax bill that we need to work. The rural mayors need to work with their colleagues in the cities, because we need to keep the taxes down. We have great response times, but we need to improve our response times. But we have to do this without having a big increase in taxes.
Okay, and Doug?
I think Todd wants me to read my notes.
I didn't have my glasses on, so probably not.
Yeah, and I listed a number of things. Waste management, we talked about that. Infrastructure, we're all fighting for the same dollar when it comes to our infrastructure problem. So our voice at the table, loud voice at the table, fighting for our needs. Transit system, again, do we need more transit? We need to look at services that we can buy. If we can't buy from the region, we should look at outsourcing. And if we can get it cheaper somewhere else, we should be looking at that. Fire halls, one of the things I'm hearing when I'm going around at the fire halls and seeing some of our fire halls are in pretty dilapidated shape when you get into some of the older things in the 50s and 60s. So again, we need to look at that and perhaps do a study to say, do we need as many fire halls? And if we could buy some property or sell the property that we have, look into putting that money back into another fire hall / community center / library / police station / whatever. So we got everything on one site. And again, you'd have to do a consultant report to find out where this thing should be located to deal with the emergency response time. Again, if we can get rid of some of our old infrastructure and build new, it's going to cost some money, but at the end of the day, you're saving money, because the amount of money you're spending now on the older buildings that you have is just money that's coming to the door. The other thing that again, is a big priority for me is the health and safety one, of course, when I look at some of these older firehouses. So that's what I would be looking at.
Okay, we'll ask Bonnie to give her final response to this, and I know that Mr. Cowan wants to interject after that. So go ahead, Bonnie.
Okay. First thing I'm thinking of is the regional chair, regional position with the mayors sitting on. We need better communication. What I find is the councils need to give the mayor the input as to what they are seeing in each of their wards as being issues, and then getting the feedback back as to what can be done regionally and what cannot be done regionally. I think that's very, very important. We need that extra input. But I have to agree with what my colleagues have said. Policing is a big issue I'm hearing about, particularly in light of the fact that Breslau just had cars being broken into Monday night. I received a number of calls last night regarding that, and they feel the police are not visible in our township as much as they would like to see them. And again, it's the emergency vehicles as well, fire and whatnot. Transfer station is another big issue. They do not want to see that one closed. So I think everything my colleagues have said is the fact.
Okay, thank you very much, Bonnie. Todd, you wanted to interject here?
Yes, just briefly. Doug brought up the fire hall issue. Yes, the township is aware of, Conestoga, Maryhill, some of the fire halls that are in disrepair, but that goes into that $67 million deficit that we look at, and that capital money. We only have so much money in the township each year that we can put into capital projects, which is water mains, bridges, or roads, and buildings. And we are looking at, we do have an inventory of where these buildings are, and we keep kind of putting a few Band-Aids on them. But yes, I agree, we do need to invest in those. And also, I think your point of sharing services is a very good point. And with the Lunor development just north of town here off Church Street, we have a location there for a new fire hall. The fire hall that we have here in Elmira is outdated. The trucks have trouble getting in and out because the trucks have increased in size. So what we've done, we started about 1.5 years ago with discussions with Woolwich Regional Police, which they're looking at expanding, and we're looking at doing a combined services at our location over here before they start building it. So I think those are all good ideas, and it's working together with the region to kind of come up with some of these.
Okay, and Sandy wanted to say something too.
I talked about waste transfer station previously, and there's been a lot said about that. But the other thing that hasn't been mentioned is our regional roads. Many of our roads, especially our main arterial roads, are controlled by the region. And one, for example, Arthur Street coming through Elmira has a lot of truck traffic, and I know that that's a concern to many residents. And that is a regional issue. And so we need to have a strong voice at regional council, and we need to have a voice that's respected by the other councillors in order to get some changes to things like our regional roads and our waste transfer station.
Thanks, Todd, for that clarification on the fire halls. I'm glad to hear that that's in the works. And I guess the reason I brought up the health and safety issue is when I went to some of the fire halls talking to the volunteer firefighters, 156 firefighters that we have, is they're trained, professional, qualified, they're out there fighting the same fires as that happens in Kitchener, water cameras all over the world. So the concern that was brought to my attention is again, these are older fire halls, we all know that, there's something coming down about it. But to me, an immediate response would be, one of the comments, they're fighting these fires, so it's chemical fires, main fires, God knows what you're getting these days, and then when they come back to the fire hall, there are no showers. So they basically take their gear off, and I asked one of the gentlemen what they're doing, he says, well, you go home and have a shower. So to me, that's a concern. So I think that should be an immediate, I see Todd shaking his head. That should be an immediate thing that we do, as this council does right now, is again, it's all about health and safety, well-being of families, they're going home, they're hugging their wives, they're grabbing their kids. That needs to be addressed right now.
Thank you very much. All right, moving along. And we'll ask Todd to be the first to respond to this question. The Chamber of Commerce has issued or has itemized its priorities, what it considers to be its main priorities. And they are doctor recruitment, interest arbitration, fair municipal tendering, and tax restraint. The question is, what do you consider the priority issues for the township over the next 4 years? Todd?
Can you just repeat that again?
Yeah. The Chamber's priorities are doctor recruitment,
Right.
interest arbitration,
Yeah.
fair municipal tendering, and tax restraint. What do you consider the priority issues for the township over the next 4 years?
I'm assuming it's one of those.
It can be one of those, or you can go off the list as well.
Sure.
We had a similar,
Okay.
you're not alone, Todd, we had a similar response yesterday during the Kitchener Mayoral debate. Those are the Chamber's priorities. Tax restraint, you may agree with, you may not, but you can go off the page. What do you consider? That's what those are the Chamber's priorities. What are yours? Do they coincide?
Well, I think the arbitration issue is huge. Basically, the arbitration issue comes around to the big ticket items we have at the region, even at the township, but more so at the region, which impacts us directly. And the arbitration issue is like a police officer in Monty Region will get paid the same as a police officer in downtown Toronto, or and they get basically the same amount of pay, and it's the matching. Our hands, the township's hands are tied when it comes to those type of issues. And it's almost like you kind of sit down to the negotiation table, but then if anybody gets scooped or anything, then, we go to arbitration. And then we've seen a number of communities that have been saddled with fairly high settlements on these arbitrations. But that means, I don't think that we can settle those. I know we can't settle those at the region. That's going to be a provincial mandate before we can really tackle provincial arbitration. Doctor recruitment is huge. It continues to be huge. The township participates in a doctor recruitment every year with the chamber in December to try to woo people here. And what do we have to offer? We have a lot to offer here at the township, because we have, our crime rate is relatively low. We have lots of facilities. We have the St. Jacobs Market, but we also have arts and entertainment that we have within the regional elite. And I think that we need to continue to keep our foot on the gas on doctor recruitment. Taxes are always an issue. And especially when we are blessed with the growing population that we are, and I say that, and I don't say that in a way that I'm making fun of it. It's great, because my parents live down in Windsor, near Windsor, and they're in tough times down there, where their real estate prices are considerably lower, their taxes are considerably higher, their services are considerably lower. So we have to keep our eye on that tax rate. We have to keep our eye on that Plus, we need to balance everything else, as we've talked about, as the services, from snow removal, to garbage, to policing, to things that are both here at the township and at the region. I think we always have to keep our eye on the tax dollar and make sure that the taxpayer feels that they're getting what their bang for their buck for the tax dollars.
Okay, thank you, Doug.
Doctor recruitment, I agree with that. And again, thanks to the Chamber of Commerce. The last several years, that always has been an issue, but again, the Chamber of Commerce kicks in, regional government kicks in. Again, it's a lot of discussion that I've had amongst a lot of people, and we just tend to get that back on track. It tends to go in cycles. Fair tendering process, I'm assuming you mean open tender?
Yeah, fair and open tender.
A fair and open tender, I'm all for that. Again, it's getting the best bang for the buck. As long as the municipality has all of their documentation and close or tight specifications. The only thing that is worried from time to time is when you get the smaller companies that put their name and that don't have the background or the support, and they low tender it. And again, it's not necessarily low tender, but sometimes it's forced to take that. So low tendering is good as long as it's managed from within. I'm also a firm believer in pre-qualification with some of the larger jobs. Again, there's not a lot of companies out there that can do some of the larger projects. So again, that's a decision between staff and council, and pre-qualified certain contractors that can do certain jobs. As for the tax restraint, that's an interesting one. I recall years ago when obviously we want to keep the taxes as low as we can, but when you get to a 0% or 0.5% increase, you start doing that year after year after year after year, it tends to catch up with you. So again, I think Woolwich has done a fantastic job over the years keeping it where it is. Taxes will go up, but it's a moderate raise, and it's one that obviously we're reaping the benefits. So again, zero increase, you pay for it all.
Thank you, Dr. Bonnie.
I think the biggest issue that I've been hearing has been taxes. People want to see their tax levels kept at a manageable level. We are dealing with a lot of seniors in Woolwich Township, and it's something that they do not want to see rise regularly because their investments are not rising, so they need to be able to keep up with it. The doctor issue is what I have to agree with my colleagues on. That is an issue that's been raised many, many times. And another large one for us is infrastructure. Because we have such a large infrastructure deficit, we have to find a way to deal with this. And taxing isn't going to be the only way. We don't have an answer for that, but it's something we have to keep on the radar and we do have to work on.
Okay, thank you, Bonnie. And the final response on this one goes to Sandy.
Doctor recruitment's been an issue for many years, and I think it's still something that we need to consider. And of course, as my colleagues have said, nobody wants taxes to increase a great deal. We do need to keep our tax increases in line, but to go for a zero increase is unrealistic, and that's how you get into trouble like infrastructure deficit. So, and here I know that infrastructure is an important issue for us. We have many more bridges per capita than most municipalities, and bridges are expensive to maintain, and so that is an issue that is important for us here. And the other piece would be the asset management, how we care for the assets that we do have.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to the next question. We'll start with Doug on this one. As mayor, part of your job will be to advance the township's priorities before the federal and provincial governments on many issues and projects over the next 4 years. The question is, what should Ottawa and the province know about the township that makes it different from other municipalities in the country and in the province? Doug.
Interesting question. We're unique, we're different. Again, we have many attributes, farmland, to industry, to commercial, to residential. We have an excellent track record of keeping our taxes low. And that's an interesting question.
Thank you. That is a very difficult question. We have a very diverse population out here. We have our Mennonite, our Old Order, we have a large farm community, as well as our urban population. So we need to approach our government leaders and make sure we are being included in all the funding projects. Like right now, some of their funding, you have to be an extremely small municipality to get it. or a large urban area to get some of this funding. And we seem to get lost in the shuffle, and I think that's something we have to draw the attention of our political leaders, is that you can't leave a community of our size, that you've got to include everybody.
Sandy.
So the thing that's unique about us is that we think that we're rural, but other people think that we're urban. And that's a problem, because they lump us into the issues that urban areas have, and our issues are a combination of urban and rural. We're so close to the urban centers that yes, in some ways we're urban, but yet we're rural, and we live here because we like that. And so that's a message that is hard to get across to someone who lives in a city, for example. It's just that mix. We don't live out in an area that is isolated. We're definitely not isolated, but we do think of ourselves as rural, and yet we have that mix of urban and rural. It is unique.
And finally to Todd for this question.
Thanks, Glenn. We can't continue, or we're not continuing now. I think municipalities at our size, or any size, but for our size specifically, can't continue just to operate under, the federal and provincial government without knocking on their doors. And I think that's one of the things that we've done since taking office 4 years ago, is we've met with more ministers and more premiers over that time to make sure that they understand Woolwich Township. So what does Woolwich Township have? We have all these gravel pits we did 4 years ago that were threatening, and they were threatening our livelihood. They were threatening one thing that we can say we have that nobody else has is the covered bridge out in West Mount Rose. So we met with the Minister of Natural Resources, we met with the Minister of Environment, we met with the Premier on those issues. The other issue and it's more, I believe that it's more provincial issues that deal directly with our issues, our funding, and our regulations. Another issue that's huge for us, because we're a small municipality, the province continues to increase regulations in fire. So all of a sudden, that good old fire truck that we had from 1984 isn't complying within regulations, because they continue to increase the regulations. But then they have no money coming back to the townships to actually, for us to go out there and purchase good fire equipment for these firefighters. So it falls back on us. Also, those that live here in Elmira know that we're unique. We have something called Chemtura that used to be Uniroyal, that used to be a number of companies. That, our groundwater is not safe. Ministry of Environment, do they know where Woolwich is? They definitely do, because they know what the issue is here. They the Ministry of Environment made a commitment that they were going to have the water cleaned up by 2028. Where are we? So we continue to meet with them, and we continue to make sure that we're on track to get that back. Infrastructure, as we've talked about a few times here, is always a huge issue. It's not just an issue here in our township, it's an issue in probably every municipality. But what we've been doing is we've been lobbying to say, we need more dollars for our infrastructure projects, because we are a smaller community, we have a smaller tax base. So we need to be able to, when those bridges do start breaking down instead of closing them, we're looking for support from them. So I think there's a number of things that are unique to Woolwich Township. I've just touched on a few, but we have to make sure that not only the province but the feds know the challenges that we face.
Okay, this kind of dovetails into the next question, and Bonnie, we'll start with you on this one. The population and the economy of the region is growing. Mentioned it off the top here, just how busy a place Elmira has become over the last few years. The estimated population of the region will be 725,000 by 2031. One of the major challenges of managing this kind of growth is to build new infrastructure and to maintain the existing infrastructure to meet economic and service delivery requirements. And in many instances, the cost of doing that exceeds the money available, the municipal financial resources that are there. The question is regarding infrastructure. We'll start with you, Bonnie. What are your ideas for addressing the infrastructure challenge, not only in Woolwich, but right across the region?
That's a very difficult one. We have so much aging infrastructure. We are going to be very limited as to what we can do without huge tax increases. I think we need to depend on our federal and our provincial partners to start putting money into infrastructure at local levels. I don't think our taxpayers will sit back and let us increase taxes by 10 or 15% to cover these costs. So we have to find an innovative way of doing this. And to be honest, I don't have an answer for that one at this point in time.
Okay, Sandy?
I think previously we talked a little bit about managed growth, and I think that is one way to help us sort of keep our infrastructure in line with our population. The other thing is again, as was mentioned, partnering with our provincial and our federal counterparts. And for that, we need to have project-ready projects. So we need projects that are ready to go ahead when they announce funding. So I do think we need to partner. The other thing we can consider for some infrastructure, because this building here would be considered infrastructure, and I would consider this building a partnership with the community. And so that's partnering with community and with business to for certain services and certain facilities. We have a lot of very generous businesses in the area, and they have contributed greatly to the region and to this township. And I think we need to continue to look to our businesses to help us out.
Doug?
Sorry. Gary, that was really good. Glenn, you know, you look at the growth and the population growth in the region one, it's almost hard to believe when you talk numbers of 725,000, but it's you know, that's where the predictions are, and we seem to be growing by almost 10,000 a year. Infrastructure is a huge issue, but I think we all, when I say we all, I don't mean us here, but I think all the municipalities, not only the region, but outside the region, but mainly the region, we need to take stock of those. Doug has mentioned it. We've done that in the township, where we've actually done it. And we do it, I believe it's every 4 years, we do a roads needs study to say, what shape are these roads, needs, and bridges, the needs of these bridges are in, but we need to, first of all, know where we're at with the infrastructure. Then that's the expansion. It's the widening of highways. I guess the golden ticket at the end is how do we address that? The township, we've taken a bit of a bold move, and we've introduced an infrastructure levy, which is a tax that we've been adding to the base taxes. Now it's only been $15 to $20 on a tax bill, but at least we're addressing the issue. When we look at future issues, there's a couple of ideas that I would have. First of all, and I'm not going to go monologue on this, but I'll try to keep it quick. We had the old township hall at 69 Arthur Street sat vacant for a number of years after the township moved to the new facility. We couldn't sell it. We couldn't figure out why. So what I did is we brought together some business leaders from around, not just Woolwich Township, but around the region of Waterloo, and from marketing to management to real estate to businesses, to say, hey, what are we going to do with this building? How do we actually get this thing sold? So basically, we sat down one day and went through the whole gamut of what would the uses be for this building, and how do we market this building? And we came up with about 3 ideas at the end. One was an office, an architect's office. One was a doctor's office. The other was, and it escapes me, but basically, after we rolled it out and we had a plan, within the month, we had 3 offers on the table. So when we look at infrastructure, it's kind of the same thing as how I would approach it. Is we work with the Chamber of Commerce, but we also work with businesses to say, how do we tackle this? Because we're not talking a couple of $1 million. Here in the township, it's $67 million. You look at the city of Kitchener, it's probably well over $200 million. It's a huge issue. When we look at how do we raise money at the township, other than going back to the barrel of the taxpayer, which everybody gets tired of, is let's look outside of the box. We have this huge building here that has tons of footprint that we could put solar panels on. So we're looking into stuff like that. We have stormwater management ponds, so we could look at thermal energy. So there's a number of things that we could look at, but we need to look outside the box to say, how do we tackle this issue? I think the biggest thing, though, that the township is in great shape, because we have a very low debt at this point, and we're going to continue with a very low debt. So when the province comes along and says, or the feds come along and say, oh, here's this bale of money for new roads and new infrastructure and expansion, at least we have the, and it's going to be a match in a third, at least we have the capabilities that we can step up to the table for this.
Thank you, Todd.
As I said before, bigger is not always better. We need to look for ways to save money. We need to look at all municipalities at all levels of government. Look at the ways we're spending, ways we can save money, and we need to be creative. We almost need a think tank, bring people, and there's a lot of smart people out there with a lot of good ideas. We just need to hear them. Again, internal staff, external staff, contractors, partnerships, fundraising. I look at the LRT is 800 million done in 2018. Any savings that are realized towards that should go back into the coffers and not spend money somewhere else on another project. We just need to be more creative in how we spend the taxpayers' money. Okay.
And again, feel free to rebut if you want. We encourage that kind of one-on-one discussion between you if you want. Again, you're free to do that. Just raise your hand. Let me know if you want to do that. Okay. This question is probably a little more of a, let's say, a hot button issue in this part of the region than in the cities. We did ask the Kitchener mayoral candidates this question yesterday, but I imagine it's going to resonate just a little bit more up here. And we'll start with Sandy on this one. And it's, would you support merging all the fire departments across the region? Would you support merging all the fire departments across the region? Sandy?
I have a huge respect for our volunteer fire departments and our volunteer firefighters. And I think for us here in the region and here in the township, that is it does a couple of things. It's economical for us. It's a lot less money for us to run a volunteer fire department than it would be to run a full-time fire department. And the other thing it does is it helps create community. You know how involved our firefighters are in a lot of community events and how active they are in the community and what kind of ownership it gives them in the community. So I would not be in favor of merging our fire department with the other fire departments.
Okay, Tom.
Good question. Just to put it in perspective, one full-time firefighter in the city of Kitchener, Waterloo, or Cambridge would operate one of our entire fire departments. So say, Floridale, to operate that for an entire year is one full-time firefighter. So I'm against the whole idea of merging. I think that we have, maybe this is just biased, I believe we have one of the best fire services in the whole region, because when you look at the training that they receive, you look at how quickly they respond and how, we've had very few losses, like major losses, that we would be able to save. So I think our fire service is very quick at the response times, and I don't think that we should be diluting that with the others. Not to say that the other fire services are not up to our standard, but I look at it and I think that if we want to save some money, or at least save some time, I think a 911 service, we've talked about that also, how, when you look at how the 911 service goes, when we get a fire call, it can be made much more efficiently than it is right now. And I believe that that's the first step, and I don't think that a merging of fire services would be a cost saving at all.
Doug?
I think we're going to all be on the same page with this one. Again, bigger is not always better. We can't afford to have a full-time fire department. Again, full-time staff, the cost. If anything, we should be looking at some efficiencies within the fire department or other departments, and because we're talking about the fire department, is there a service that we can buy from the other fire department? Their training, fire prevention, rather than our volunteer firefighters. Pride, ownership, accountability, responsibility. Each one of these volunteer firefighters are dedicated to the end, and this is their community. So, like Todd said, the response time is phenomenal. I stop by the fire halls, as do these folks, and again, these guys take a lot of pride in what they do as a volunteer firefighter. Amalgamation for fire department, definitely. Other areas, awesome.
Thanks, Doug. Any thoughts?
I'm not in favor of merging our fire departments. We have a dedicated group of men and women out there, and they deserve a lot of credit for what they do. We have 156, and they do so much for our communities. Just this past week, the Conestoga group had a volunteer breakfast, and they donated the money for Heroes for Human, which I give them a lot of credit for. They all do this every fall, and I would not ever merge them.
Let's go ahead, Sam.
I just wanted to add, the suggestion was made that we might look to buy services elsewhere. I would say we would have services that we can offer the other fire departments.
Okay. This is kind of a, I don't know, it's kind of a high school essay type question. And yet it's an interesting question. I like it. And we'll start with Todd on this one. It's very simple question. What is your vision for the Township of Woolwich? What is your vision for the Township of Woolwich?
How much time do I have? That's a very good question, and I must say to you and Art and Ian, I didn't actually give you this question. In 2010, that was my platform. It was a vision for the township, because I think that we can't continue to go on and react to things from gravel pits to chemturas to biogas. We were just reacting. We need a plan, we need a vision. So I looked at it 4 years ago, and I had a 5-point plan for a greener Woolwich. So we protected green spaces. We protected the Victoria Glen here in Elmira. We need to have an appreciation, so when we do build a new subdivision, we're not saying, because we have an option when developers come in, they can either give you the money or they give you the land. But we keep pushing, no, we want the parkland. So a greener area. We also have to look at community. Crime prevention is huge. We've doubled the amount of money that we give for the youth center. We have to keep our youth, and as we grow, again, as Doug has said, bigger is not always better, but you know, we continue to get bigger, so we have to be on top of easy crime prevention things that aren't going to cost a lot of money today. I see a township that continues to grow and thrive, but we continue to keep our taxes low, and continue to keep our services where they are right now or even higher. I also look at a responsive and responsible government was one of the things. And so we've tried to increase our communication to the public to say, hey, where does our taxes actually go? And we've tried to break that down. We've started a Woolwich Township Facts email newsletter each month that people can sign up for. We've opened up our budgets before we even get into budgets to do pre-budget consultations. And I wish we had this many people come out and say, what are your priorities? This is the little bit of money that we have to work with here. Where's the priorities going to go? And have some options. So I think it's engaging people, but I see a township that continues to grow, manage growth, low taxes, but continually a better place to live and a safe place to live.
Okay, Doug?
I see an open and transparent government. I see Woolwich looking much like it looks today, and a little bit bigger, not a lot bigger. Balanced growth, sustainable, working on our infrastructure. A lot of our roads are fixed, our buildings are all looked after. Money and money there to sustain what we have. When we talk about infrastructure, it's not only infrastructure on the ground infrastructure, but what's above the ground, so it ties into the asset management. And again, one of our biggest assets is our resources, which is our people. So it's growing our people, growing our economy, growing our township, growing our residential, our commercial at a balanced rate, and keeping taxes low.
Thank you, Bonnie.
For me, it's offering a good quality of life for our residents. And part of that is a slow managed growth, maintaining our trail systems, our green spaces, our farmland. All of this combines to give people what they want for themselves and their families. And I think it's very important. As part of that, the infrastructure would be maintained. And if people don't have that quality of life, they're not going to stay in Woolwich. They'll look elsewhere.
Okay, Sandy.
I see Woolwich Township as being a leader in healthy living and wellness. We have biking, we have hiking, we have food, we have everything that we need to be good and healthy. And I see us being a leader in wellness and in healthy living, and inviting other folks to come and enjoy it with us as part of our growth in tourism and business. I see responsible government as something that's obviously important to everyone, responsible and accountable government. And I see engaged citizens. I would hope that citizens like you would continue to be engaged And that as government, as your council, that we would encourage you to come and talk to us, and that we would also go to you and talk to you and hear what your concerns are, because we're only, we'll be 6 people, and there's a lot more people and a lot more good ideas out there. So I see us getting more engaged and helping citizens become more engaged.
Okay, thank you very much for that one. And Doug, you're next to start the next round of questioning. And the question is, what do you think is the biggest challenge for the township over the next 4 years? What's the biggest challenge for Woolwich over the next 4 years, Doug?
Again, you're going to hear the same answer. It's infrastructure funding. Again, we have $67 million set aside, but it's nowhere near enough to look after what we have and sustain what we're growing. We're putting more roads in. We're putting more buildings. We need more money, and we need to keep on top of that. So infrastructure is big, and not only for this municipality, but for all municipalities. And we need to fight at the table, at the regional table, federal, provincial, you name it, anywhere we can raise funds. If there's different what's the word I'm looking for, grants out there, trillion grants, whatever, staff and or council should be looking at there, any fundings that we can get to put towards the township and the infrastructure funding from now until ever, we should be looking at that.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you. I have to agree with Doug. Infrastructure is the biggest challenge we are facing going forward. And it's going to be a matter of where do we come up with the funds. And as Doug has said, we have to approach our federal and provincial counterparts and seek the money out from them to accomplish what we need to do. But we're also going to be facing challenges from weather, as we've seen in the past year with the 2 ice storms. They can become very costly to repair the damage done and clean up afterwards. And we've seen that this year, and we had an awful lot of snow to go with it. So that's another issue we have to keep in mind.
Of course, infrastructure, there's been a lot said about that, so I won't repeat that. I said to one person, they asked what the biggest issue in the township is right now, and I said, what I hear the most is sort of a little big problem, and we've talked about that too, and that is the transfer station. So that's a short-term problem that I think we can solve quite quickly, but it is a problem that's in the forefront for very many people. And the third thing that I'd like to talk about is the environment. I see the environment as being something that's very important. We need to take care of the space that we have. I was speaking to someone in Breslau recently who was talking about garbage in the creek in Breslau. And so we need to really be mindful of our water, we need to be mindful of our land, and we need to be good stewards.
Okay, and finally on this one.
Yes. The biggest challenge over the next 4 years, and I think that we've already seen these challenges, but it's our growth in this area. Because where we're situated, not only near the airport, but in this lovely community, a lot of people are moving here. So our biggest pressures are going to be, and are now, but are going to continue to be, is our level of service that we have. So it's our level, it's our snow plowing services, it's our, of course, waste management is huge that we're going to have to deal with, and it's not going to go away, and we're going to continue to see, people dumping if we don't deal with this. We deal with this in the township, but it's the growth, and it's the growth management of these services that we have here at the WMC. We're working with our staff here as we continue to add staff for more and more, skating lessons and swimming lessons, but also in Breslau. Breslau is an exploding community out there that we continue to expand the community center out there and programs out there. So I think our biggest challenge is going to be managing that growth in a manner where we don't have to see high taxes. We have to keep our taxes where, basically in line with where we're going right now. But that's the biggest challenge, because it's kind of like all of a sudden, you find out your family's growing. You got to say, okay, well, we have to manage things a little bit differently here, because we're going to have more needs. We're going to maybe look at a bigger house. We're going to start looking at certain things. And it's the same thing here. We're a big family, but we're going to continue to get larger. And we have to be able to manage that growth so we don't see the high taxes that maybe some other municipalities very close to us do. And I think that's our biggest challenge, is trying to keep that on track.
Okay, thank you. Our next question deals with the possibility or potential of a satellite campus of some kind. You see this in Stratford, Brantford, Barrie, places like that. We'll start with Bonnie on this one. Would you support and promote a new post-secondary institution campus in Woolwich Township?
I would support that. I would like to see our population get the education opportunities that could be there for them. I don't know what type of satellite campuses would be, so it's a little difficult to give a more definitive answer, but I think it would be very good for the township, and it would help us as a business community to be able to draw from that campus afterwards.
Okay.
I would be very happy to see a satellite campus of a college or a university here. I think we have a lot to offer in terms of entrepreneurship. We have many small businesses. Our farm operators are of course small business owners. So I would say a partnership on entrepreneurship, agriculture, trades, and research and the environment. I think any of those four would be excellent fits for the township.
Good question, and we're seeing this, as you said, we're seeing this across the province, but I think it's huge because if you look at Cambridge, for instance, where they have a satellite of the School of Architecture there, I think there's some opportunity as post-secondary education, not only at the university, but the college level, continue to increase. They're looking at, they're needing more space. Right now in St. Jacobs, with Fori Communication, they've partnered with the University of Waterloo in their felt lab and doing some research there. But I think the big key that when universities look at relocating, they also look at what do we have to offer. I think one of the biggest things in St. Jacobs that we had to offer for University of Waterloo to come in and do this kind of pilot project was transit. It was a big thing for their students to be able to get up here and get home. So I think it's a great opportunity, not just for post-secondary education, but I also think from government side of things too. I think the region of Waterloo, as they look at expanding, they need to look outside of the city of Kitchener to expand, because I think when you look at the economic boom that happens in small communities when you put an office or a call center, it is just tremendous. So I would most definitely support that.
Okay, Doug.
I as well would support that 100%. The only thing that I would be pretty stern on is it has to be a partnership, and it can be funded just by Woolwich. Typically, when they come in, they look for a property or buildings and move into it. It has to be a partnership between the universities, the colleges, the businesses. The other thing that I would be looking for is we have a lot of local businesses, apprenticeships and trades, so we can actually have people actually get an education here and possibly go into a job within Woolwich Township.
Okay, thank you, Doug. That concludes that question. And the next question, and we'll begin with Sandy on this one. And the question is, what is the role of municipalities in creating and implementing energy efficiency incentives for the residential and the business sectors? Energy efficiency, what role do municipalities play in creating and implementing energy efficiency incentives for the residents and the business sector? Sandy.
I think municipalities can play a role as a bit of a role model, I suppose. There was mention made of looking at alternative energy sources for some government buildings. I think that can be one way that municipalities can show leadership in this regard. I'm struggling a little bit because I'm thinking, of your tax bill, a quarter of it comes to the township and over half goes to the region. And so, if we're looking at financial incentives, that needs to be balanced with the whole picture. And I have to say, I haven't looked at that as a whole. And so that would be something that I would like to look at in a broader range than to sort of talk about tax incentives.
Energy efficiency. I think first and foremost, I think the township needs to lead by example. So when we look at we look at our township buildings and we do those audits on the township buildings, are we being energy efficient? And I don't believe that we're there, but through our audits, hopefully we get to that point to see how much is it going to cost to become energy efficient or more energy efficient. Solar farms seem to be a big issue. Could be, definitely a generation of not just energy, but some dollars. I think usually when you look at energy efficient programs or incentives, they come through the LDCs of the local distributor network, like Waterloo North Hydro here in the township. But I think the programs that are usually launched as far as to become more energy efficient comes through the province, flows through the Waterloo North Hydro, and they roll them out. But I think first and foremost, we can be leaders as far as lead by example. But I think most of those programs would have to be coming from the province or coming through like Waterloo North Hydro, as far as like turning in your old refrigerators and stoves to get an incentive, and those usually come from the province. So before I let go, I guess what we can do as the township is we can lobby the government, provincial government, to offer more of these energy efficient programs in the homes, where we can incent people to actually become more apparent and more aware of where their energy is going.
Is that done?
This was very near and dear to my heart. Back in the late 80s, we actually started energy management within the city kitchen. So we looked at solar roofing, we looked at building controls, we looked at gas, water, electricity. We looked at the full gamut when it came to operating facilities. And over the last 25, 30 years, hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings. The energy, the pumps on the fountains, the furnaces, all the things in our large facilities, pump size, you name it, caulking on windows, full-blown audits to reduce the energy cost. And let's face it, the biggest cost is the operating cost for the township or any municipality. It's the cost of running or operating your buildings. So you need to look for savings constantly, wherever you can find the savings, realize the savings and actually put that back into your operating cost and look at more savings potential when it comes to energy management. I think of the rink, building control on the rinks, the temperature re-ice, setback time, cool down times, lights in all your facilities. It's amazing, back in the day, not that long ago, we actually went to the staff that worked at the city and basically said, look for ideas. And it was amazing the amount of ideas that we got back from the staff and or the public. Again, the way we operate our facilities, the way you folks operate your home. We all should be looking for efficiency at all times to save millions of dollars. So there's tons of potential when it comes to energy management systems. And there's also lots of grants out there as well. City Kitchener just put the central maintenance facility. It's the biggest solar roof in Ontario. And a hot groundwater source as well. So we're heating and cooling the building, solar roof and groundwater. So lots of potential, lots of savings.
I think my counterparts have covered pretty much all of that. I would agree, we need to go after the upper levels of government to do the incentive programs, because as a small community, we don't have the funding to be able to offer it to our residents, and we also need to lead by example. So as we are building new structures, we need to look at these savings for ourselves first.
Okay. This next question appears, I don't know how many years I've been asking this question. This next one, doesn't matter where the election is being held. If it's being held in one of the regions, this question comes up, and we'll ask Todd to take this one on. Very simply, do you support the new Highway 7 between Kitchener and Guelph? Todd.
I didn't realize there was a new highway system. Back when the province announced this about 2 years ago, that, oh, now we're moving forward in the Highway 7, I asked MTO to tell me, I said, so as a betting man, what's going to happen first? The Highway 7 could be completed with Maple Leafs and make the playoffs, or win the Stanley Cup.
They've both been in the planning stages since 1967.
1967, I believe so. Yes, I was a toddler then. Highway 7, I don't support the expansion of Highway 7, or the new Highway 7. I think an expansion would be much better. And if you look at the dollars that they're investing, the profits, because there's only one taxpayer, it all comes back to us. I think that I think it's very costly, and I think the money could be spent in better places, much better places. Yes, there's an issue on Highway 7 that needs to be dealt with. Why? If we we haven't really looked outside the box when it comes to traffic on Highway 7. It is quite congested. It does need to be expanded, and has the region looked at, or even been in discussions with the city of Guelph to say, hey, why don't we run a transit back and forth between Guelph and Waterloo? So I think there's other options that are less costly than this, but I think unfortunately this is a political football that's going to happen before the Leafs make it. So, but no, I don't support it.
All right, thank you. Doug?
I'm not sure we'll see it in our lifetime. I agree there needs to be some form of new highway or something put in, but I don't think we should be doing it. I don't think we should be investing the money. And the question I would have is, going back to 1967, which report do we follow? You know, which consultant do we take the advice from? I think it needs to be brought back to regional council. I think we need to have a really good debate between council and between the public. Involve Cambridge, involve as many people as we can, and decide whether it's needed or not. I agree with Todd. Transit might be the way to go. Put more buses on. Carpooling. We need to look at alternate forms of transit.
Thank you. I don't support Highway 7 as it's being proposed. I sent a list of questions to Michael Harris about 2 weeks ago, as the question was asked to me, asking what the cost of the highway would be, why did they not expand the current highway, how many acres of farmland are being expropriated for this, and how many acres of wetland are going to be affected by this. I'm still waiting for my answers because he hasn't been able to get them out of the Liberal government, so until we get those answers, I don't think anybody's going to know for sure what's going on, but I don't support it in its current state. I think if anything, look at widening the road because there is space on both sides of it to widen it, but definitely not put the money into it that they're proposing to do.
Sandy?
It seems like this debate is going to go on for another 60 years. It's been 60, I don't mean this particular debate, I mean the Highway 7 debate. I talked to someone who is a little before my time, was looking at it as a school project about 60 years ago. So this has been debated ad nauseum. Do I support it in its current form? I guess one thing I would agree with in general terms is that rather than taking up more farmland, it would be nice to use it where it is. Highway 7 does need to be fixed though. There is congestion. We try to travel that road at certain times of day. It's a problem. So we need to come to a conclusion and we need to move ahead with it.
Okay, thank you. This is our final question, and it's one that you're very familiar with here in the township, because Michael Harris proposed that something be done about fair and open tendering. It's Bill, I believe it's Bill 73, is that right? He proposed Bill 73, the Fair and Open Tendering Act, which did not pass. He's still fighting to try and ensure that it does, but we'll see where it goes. The question is, we'll start with Doug on this one, should all contractors, regardless of their union affiliation, be allowed to bid on municipal and school board contracts in the region?
Good question. Simple answer, yes. Albeit, the tender documents have to be tight, specifications have to be tight, and the contractors bidding have to have the workforce to be able to do the work that they're bidding on. Again, it's not always low tender that gets the job. It comes down to a staff, township staff who evaluate all tender documents to make sure that the contractor is able. You have to have bid bonds, again, backing, and again, how long has the contractor been in business? There needs to be all kinds of reference checks put on the contractor. But I believe in open and fair bidding that there has to be policies and procedures in place to back up that.
I do support the Fair and Open Tendering Act. I think it was a wise decision when Michael brought it forward. I don't think any business should be shut out because they are not a union member.
Ditto.
So this debate isn't going for another 5 minutes.
Shortest answer.
Yeah, I would also agree because as we go out to tender for, it doesn't matter if it's roads or if it's a bridge or whatever it is, the more tenders you get, the better representation you have of the project and the cost of the project would be cost savings for us, so I would also support.
Go ahead.
Just one other comment is, one of the things that the township should look at is a pool of tendering-like services. I know that the city of Kitchener, the regional water division, I'm not sure whether Woolwich is on that, but the Cambridge, when it comes to different tendering processes, for instance, for custodial supplies, the region will actually put out a tender on behalf of the different municipalities, so we're all realizing the savings, and we're all buying from the same contractor. The other thing is, when it comes to our contractors, our electrical contractors, our mechanical contractors, whoever, we will actually set up a bid where the contractor, typically they mark their materials up 10, 15, 20%. We'll actually put something in the tender documents that you have to buy from our supplier, and our supplier is charging us 5 to 6%. So they charge us their hourly rate, but they have to buy the materials from our contractor of choice. And I think that's something that when you come into pool resources and stuff like that through the purchasing process, that's one of the things where you can realize a lot of savings as well.
Okay, Doug wanted to add something here.
Just a quick one. Currently, the township does participate in the pool. I know with gasoline, for one thing, we get the regional rate. We also participate in the insurance pool, so our insurance costs are considerably lower because there's a pool of all the municipalities in the region of Waterloo. So there are a number of things that we currently do pool on that is a cost saving. So, and I would, I definitely support that.
Okay, thank you so much. That concludes the question portion of the afternoon, and move on to closing remarks. And again, this order was determined before the forum began by a draw, and roughly 90 seconds for your closing remarks, and we begin with Sam.
Thank you again for the opportunity to answer your questions and to, well, it's not really a dialogue because we're the only ones speaking, but for you to listen to us. And thank you for your interest and your engagement in the political process. I think it's so important that people take an interest. So I hope you will encourage your friends and your neighbors to also learn about the issues and to vote on election day. Most rewarding times I've had representing you on the school board and again on Township Council are those times where you have been engaged in an issue. You elect us to represent you and your interest, but the reality is that you have the passion and you have the knowledge for issues that impact you and for issues that you feel strongly about. And so I look forward to again being able to meet together and problem solve issues together, whatever they may be. To help connect you with resources, you need to get answers and to create an atmosphere of cooperation and partnership between residents, between business, between our many volunteers and community. This community is a wealth of knowledge, expertise, wisdom, and energy. I have personally seen how we come together in fundraising for Woolwich Community Services and their capital campaign. It's been a pleasure to work with groups like the Bridge Keepers and other volunteer groups who add so much to our community. I listen, I have the experience, I get the job done. 10 years as your trusted elected representative. Let's see what another 4 years can do.
Thank you, Sam. Todd?
Thank you. Again, thank you for coming out tonight, this afternoon, to hear the debate, to hear the questions, to hear the answers. Thank you for the Chamber of Commerce for organizing this, and also thanking my other colleagues here that are running, because it's a big decision to run, and it sometimes isn't fun, but so far it's been fun. 4 years ago, I decided to run for mayor because I did have a vision for the township. I made a number of commitments. I left those commitments on my website, and I left my website up for people to go and check on them. And they're still on my website, Vision for Woolwich, and what we did and how we fulfilled those. The next 4 years lies ahead of us, but we need a vision. We can't be reactive. We have to be proactive. We have to see where we want to go. We want to protect our communities from gravel pits. We also want to not take our eye off the ball on our groundwater, especially here in Elmira. And where's that going? Thank you again for coming out, and please get out and vote and bring as many people as you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Doug?
Thanks to the Chamber, thanks to Glenn, and thanks to my colleagues, and most important, thanks to you. It's been a while since I've been in a 2-hour job interview. Actually, been many years. If elected, I want to be known as the people mayor. For me, it's all about being trustworthy, honest, having integrity and respect, and more importantly, being accountable for your actions. I will ensure our partnerships and collaboration with surrounding townships and other municipality and private businesses are solid. I'd also ensure that the best interests of Woolwich residents and the businesses are well represented on regional council, as well as all other boards the mayor sits on. I will work with council to ensure that staff and council have the proper funding and tools allocated in order for them to perform their jobs to the best of their abilities. I would like to engage the public as well as private business more when it comes to the municipality's larger community projects, and this can be accomplished by creating focus groups. There are a lot of talented people in our community that have much knowledge and talent to offer. We just need to find a better way to tap into this and engage people. As mayor, it will be my responsibility to provide leadership, guidance, and direction to staff. Council's priority is to ensure fiscal responsibility as it relates to the township's assets. I feel my 3 decades of municipal exposure and experience to municipal politics, private industry, community groups, as well as partnerships with various regional agencies has prepared me well for this position. I will be able to hit the ground running, so to speak, with very little time required. I need to adjust and familiarize myself on how municipal government operates. Lastly, I will move the township forward to work in unity with other townships and municipalities to realize efficiencies and best practices. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Finally, one.
Thank you. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out today. It is very important that you do get involved in an election and that you do have your voice heard. But I want people to be proud to be part of Woolwich. We live in a vibrant community with easy access to large centers for education and entertainment. We have a wonderful trail system for recreation, as well as this building that you're using today. We have access to local food supplies through our farm network. I envision that today, tomorrow, and in the future, Woolwich will remain the best place to work, live, and play. Thank you.
And that concludes today's forum. I'm going to hand for all of our candidates. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming out. I know you guys are busy in your campaigns. Thanks for donating your time today. Thank you, the good people of Woolwich and Elmira, for coming up this afternoon. I always love coming up here and experiencing Woolwich Township. I know that you guys have a lot of passion about politics, and so thank you for coming today. Thanks to the Chamber of Commerce, the Greater KLB Chamber. And how about a hand for the staff here at the Memorial Center for hosting this today. Again, you know, we told election day is October 27th. You probably all know where you're going to be voting, but if you don't, find out and get out and vote. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Have a great day.